We ask that you please not take any additional screenshots or recordings, because obviously there are people who are joining from all over the GCC region, and out of sensitivity for them, we ask that you please not do that. So I guess without further ado, I'll hand it over to Huda with just one quick remark, which is, it's a joy to help the AGJC with this Zoom every week as a volunteer. But in my day job, I have the absolute privilege to work with Justin and Yotam wearing my PR hat, and they really do an incredible job at letting the world know about some of the really special stories that come out of the Middle East, but also some of the ones that we're all watching. So it's really a joy to have them today. So Huda, over to you.
Thank you, Ariella. Hello and welcome to the weekly Pre-Shabbat AGJC Zoom call. Each week we gather together, the Jewish communities of all 6 GCC countries and our families and friends from around the world, to hear a special message before Shabbat, light candles, hear Dvar Torah, pray, and read a section from the weekly Torah portion. Today we will hear from Justin Cohen, who is news editor and co-publisher, and Yotam Confino, who is foreign editor of the Jewish News, and they will speak on unprecedented crisis for Israel and the diaspora, reporting from 2 front lines. The Association of Gulf Jewish Communities is the umbrella organization for the Jewish communities of GCC countries that are building and enhancing Jewish life in the region. While each community is independent, we share a common goal and vision for Jewish life to flourish in the Gulf for the benefit of both residents and visitors. To stay updated on AGJC events, please follow us on Twitter at GulfJewish and visit our website www.gulfjewish.org. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom and praying for peace to prevail around the world.
Thank you so much, Huda. And now we're going to head over to Sue, who's lighting Shabbat candles this week for the first time from their new home in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, Ariella? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And what a special zechut for all of us to be part of your first candle lighting in your new home. So thank you so much. And now we'll turn over to Alex, who's going to lead us in Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei kabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamo v'zacho b'diburecha dishmianu. Echad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shem ultiferet והלתילה Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lecho v'nelchaki mekor הבראכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה קומיצי מתוך הפך רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה והוא יחמול עלי חמלה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. ימים ושמאל תפרצי ואת אדוני תריצי. על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני ים סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Thank you so much, Alex. And now we'll head over to Justin and to Yotam, who are going to speak with us today. If you guys just want to unmute, and then we'll be all set.
Yotam, I think you're going to start, aren't you? Seeing as you're on the front line, the real front line.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I got it. 2 seconds. Just want to put my camera up again. I have a little issue with my tripod here. For some reason, it doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to hold it like this, and I'm sorry. I don't know what happened with my tripod. So I want to tell you a little bit about what it's been like to cover the war so far. It's been overwhelming, to put it mildly. It's just, I don't know what to say really, other than we've been bombarded with information from October 7th at 6:30 in the morning, and it hasn't stopped since. The first 48 hours, we were really just trying to figure out what had actually happened. We still didn't know the extent of the atrocities that were committed, but we quickly found out when we were allowed to visit some of those places, such as Kibbutz Be'eri. And I was in many of those places, in Kibbutz Be'eri, Sderot, Ashkelon, where the aftermath of the atrocities were so visible and were so atrocious that you simply don't have words for it. But I've been trying to continue to cover this as a journalist, trying to put my feelings aside and trying to make sense of what happened, even though there is really no sense to all of it, but trying to navigate in all of the information. And since then, I have worked from morning till evening to get the stories out. It's overwhelming, the amount of stories from victims, from eyewitnesses that we've seen. And I've never seen anything like it. And we've obviously tried to bring you guys the stories that we found the most important to tell, even though it's hard to pick really, because there are so many of them. But in the meantime, I've also been trying to tell these stories to other media. So I've been, like I said, working from morning till evening, explaining what has happened, really, and also fighting a fight to convince people that this actually happened, that October 7th happened. It's been incredibly frustrating to be in the middle of a historic atrocity that a lot of people refuse to believe happened simply because it happened to Jews, and that eyewitnesses couldn't be trusted because they were Jewish or Israeli, that I couldn't be trusted because I have a Jewish background and I'm half Israeli. It has been incredibly sad, incredibly frustrating, but I keep doing it because I think that this is an extremely important moment in time. In addition to that, I'm of course also covering what's happening on the other side in Gaza, because I am a journalist and I'm trying to bring out the stories from there as well, relying on people that I speak to in there, relying, of course, on the information that come from other news outlets and from the UN, trying to navigate in all the information. But it's been, I would say, really, really sad to see how this has spilled over to other parts of the world, how Europe, the United States, Canada, how this war has all of a sudden become a war against Jews in many ways. I think I'm absolutely blown away that this is happening. And I think that's why it's important that at least we get the facts straight, that we get the information out, and that it isn't just being drowned in all other kinds of stories. What happened on October 7th is unique in modern history. And I think that it deserves to be more than just a footnote in this war.
Great. Yotam, shall I carry on straight after? Yeah, good. So first of all, I just wanted to say, Yotam has been quite extraordinary and somewhat playing down the contribution that he's made, I think, internationally to the understanding of what did happen on the playing down the understanding of what did happen on the 7th of October. He was one of the journalists that was in the press conference in Tel Aviv just over a week ago when some of the footage from Hamas cameras were shown to the world's media. I think his tweet thread recalling, I think in quite a sanitized way in some parts, what he saw was viewed by, I think, in excess of 12 million people around the globe. It was picked up by Piers Morgan's show, and he went on to speak to Piers Morgan and wrote a piece for the UK's biggest distribution paper, The Sun. So, again, forever grateful to Yotam for what he's been doing, and just also thank you for this invite to be on the Zoom today. I was actually supposed to be in UAE in a couple of weeks' time for the conference, but that's been cancelled. I look forward at some point to coming back in the not too distant future, perhaps to sampling some of Edwin's traditional Iraqi food and so on. But we'll leave that for now. I am going to try and keep my remarks to being as positive as I possibly can, believe it or not, in these circumstances. I've long believed that I have the best job in journalism in the world. It might seem a strange thing to say for a paper with a distribution of 15,000 copies, web traffic of a million views a month, and that caters for a community of 300,000 people on the ground here in the UK. But the reason I've felt that is because what I'm writing about on a day-to-day basis, not just now but previously, means so much to those I'm closest to friends and family. And you can see when we're reporting on special moments, the traction that the stories get on social media, how closely those issues are being followed. Someone working at a national newspaper covering this, that, or the other on a day-to-day basis will not have that sense of closeness to the topics they're writing about. And I think I felt that most on a positive front 5 years ago, when the now Prince of Wales, William, visited Israel, and tracking the response that got. But never before now have I perhaps realised the centrality of a community newspaper to a small community or a larger community as exists, for example, in America. And that's after 21 years of working from work experience on the sports desk to now. The way that we have been seen as a receptacle to gather in information for people across the community, people who are looking for the latest appeals to support, when the next rallies are, where to get security advice, where to get mental health support. They've turned to us as a gathering place at the centre of the community like never before. But also, I've had the sense that for the first time ever, we've also been treated as something like a national newspaper. That's how much we've been on the front line of this second front in the diaspora. So national newspapers have not only been asking Yotam and Richard, my co-publisher, and I, and Lee, our political editor, to come onto the news and speak about what's going on, but they've also approached us for contacts and for links into the community and for ideas in a way that I never ever imagined would happen. And I think, you know, that really sums up what a community newspaper at its best can do. And it's about more than just simply reporting the news. I do want to say, as I wanted to highlight some positives. I think that in recent days, we've seen the Jewish community around the world united like never before, determined like never before. And I don't know, you know, you talk about 2 Jews, 3 opinions. It is at this point in time, not quite 16 million Jews and 1 opinion, but not so far off. Even though there are certain people in the media who still insist on carrying the voices of very fringe elements who present themselves as being part of the community, particularly at moments like this. I would also say the support of a lot of politicians around the world, particularly, you know, I could speak for the UK in particular, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, in his own way, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, although, you know, there are plenty of reasons to complain about his position on the ceasefire at the moment. I mean, it's extraordinary what the politicians have done in support, visits and meetings on a daily basis. It's extraordinary. Also, many people in the media, high-profile figures in the media, showing extraordinary support to report what's going on in a balanced way, and I think that's all we can ask for. And just finally, I wanted to mention, because this is a Gulf audience, I wanted to mention one particular story that gave me real hope, and that was, you know, we've heard a lot over the last few weeks, particularly in the first week, about lack of vocal voices from the Muslim community, particularly from imams speaking out in the diaspora, clearly and unequivocally against Hamas. A week in, we did see a statement to that effect from 15 senior imams in the UK. I know that, I can't remember his name, but I know that a very senior imam in America spoke at the Sachs conversation yesterday in even stronger and unequivocal terms. But this one story that I'm about to relay, I think, really captures why we have to hang on to a sense of hope where there doesn't appear to be much. And that is that in the first week of the conflict, of the war, we saw a huge rise in anti-Semitism already. It was inevitable. It always happens in the UK. Whenever there's a spike in violence in the Middle East, there's a spillover onto the streets of the UK. It's like clockwork. But amid it all, we saw the daubing of 2 girls' schools in Stamford Hill, which is the kind of particularly strictly Orthodox part of North London. That was reported on the news, but in a measure of how heightened tensions are, the media didn't report which schools were actually affected. The day after the reports went out, a Muslim guy from that local community went to the Hatzalah offices in Stamford Hill, and said that he came with a bunch of flowers and with chocolates. He said he wanted to express solidarity with the Jewish community, and he simply didn't know where else to go because of the heightened security. Media weren't able to report which schools had been affected. So he went to Hatzalah. He handed over these flowers and chocolates. He remained anonymous, and off he went. And I just think we have to hang on to just small bits of humanity like that. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Justin. And I just want to say that unfortunately I have to leave now, but I was happy to get this invitation and to speak to all of you. I need to unfortunately crack on with some work, but yeah, stay united and stay strong. And thanks for the kind words, Justin. And I hope you have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Justin and Yotam, for joining us, and really most importantly for the incredible work that you're doing to bring these stories to light. And I think as Justin mentioned, it's probably more important now than ever to hold on and to cling to those little stories that remind us of the good in people. So thank you very much for joining us. And now we'll turn to Rabbi de Toledo, who's going to share some words of Divrei Torah with us.
Hi, everyone. Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem. Can you hear me? Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Shabbat Shalom from Jerusalem. It's great to be joining you all again. Of course, it's been a very challenging few weeks here. And as is always the case, as the rabbi on the call, I want to see if we can take one idea from the Parsha and think about how it contributes to our understanding of this moment. Of course, this Parsha is one of the most densely packed narrative sections of the Torah. And we see a lot of different elements of Avram Avinu, Avram our father, and some of the ways in which he is a role model for really the entire Jewish people. One of the most interesting sections of the Torah this week is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. We learn about this wicked town, and we see that God suggests that he wants to destroy this town. And God says a very interesting line before destroying the town, and I think there's a lot that we can learn from it in the context of what's happening right now. The line is as follows. V'Hashem amar, ha'mechaseh ani me'Avraham asher ani aseh. And God says, should I conceal from Abraham what I'm about to do? Meaning, what am I about to do to Sodom and Gomorrah in terms of destroying it? And he says, V'Avraham hayu yiyeh legoy gadol v'atzum v'nivrechu bo kol goy haaretz. Because Avraham, says God, is surely going to become a nation that is great and mighty, and all of the nations of the earth will be blessed through him. So there are a lot of interesting questions on this pasuk, on this verse, that the commentators ask. A number of them are, this is the beginning of the Parsha. First of all, Avram has not had his son Yitzhak yet. So what does God mean when he says that Avram is going to be a large nation? There is no nation. He doesn't have any offspring at this point. Second of all, why doesn't God invoke all of the merits of the actions that Avram has already done in his life in order to merit Avram having the opportunity to advocate on behalf of the forces of good versus darkness? We know that Avram is famous for overcoming 10 nisayonot, 10 challenges that God presents him with, the majority of which he's already overcome by the time we get to this point. And lastly, why is God invoke the fact that Avram will become a large nation as a merit for why he should be Zoka, why he should be privileged to stand up as a force of light against darkness? For actually, that's not really a merit that Avram does himself. Really, that is a gift. The fact that Avram becomes a large nation is really a gift that God gives Avram. It's not something that Avram necessarily earns himself. So I want to suggest that the answer to this, or at least to one of these questions, and in particular to the fact of how do we understand that the Jewish people through their size will be a blessing to all the nations of the earth, could be found at the end of the Parsha when we see that after the Akedah, after Avram brings his son Yitzhak up to the mountain and is willing seemingly to sacrifice him, God then elaborates to Avram, what is the nature of this blessing? What is the nature of the fact that this will be a large people? And God says the following, Yibarech Avraham v'harbe erber et zerecha kekolchavei hashamayim v'kechacho asher al safat hayam. So God says that I will surely bless you and greatly shall I increase your offspring like the stars of the heavens and like the sand that is on the shore of the sea. Like the stars of the heavens and like the sand that is on the shores of the sea. So the question is, first of all, why do we have to double that? Meaning, what is the difference between the stars in the sky and the sand on the shores of the sea? So if the implication is that somehow the size of the Jewish people was both the merit that allowed Avram to stand up to God as invoking light against darkness in Sodom and Gomorrah, and so too in the future, then if we're talking about size on a cosmic level, the stars in the sky completely dwarf the amount of finite sand that's on our small little earth. But of course, the second idea is that if it's not necessarily about multitudes, but it is about something physical, there is something about the nature of the stars in the sky, but there's also something about the nature of the sand. And when we think about sand, it's interesting that he says the sand on the seashore, because if you want to go for size, as everyone here who's coming from the Gulf knows, that in the desert, there's actually a heck of a lot more sand in the desert on this earth than there are on the banks of the seashore. So what is it about the sand on the seashore versus sand that maybe you would find in the desert? So the Hasidus Shvarim, the Hasidic rabbis, say something very beautiful about this idea. They say that the sand in the desert has no water. It rarely rains in the desert, and therefore each of the pieces of the grains of sand that are found in the desert, they always remain separate. But by the sea, all of the pieces of sand are connected to water. And what is the effect of that water? That water connects each grain of sand together. So the blessing is deliberate. When God says that the people will be like the sand on the seashore, it's saying that part and parcel of the greatness of the Jewish people is true. It is about their size, but it's also about their nature. It's about the way in which the Jewish people stick together like the sand sticks together with the other pieces of sand on the seashore. You know, one of the most incredible things, as the previous speaker Justin was just speaking about, is the achdut, the unity that we see in the Jewish community right now. The way in which people have come together from all corners of the world. 1 month ago on Motzei Shabbos, thousands of Israelis were coming together to protest against the government, to protest against other ideas. The next morning on October 7th, by 12 o'clock that day, there were over 500 of those protest leaders organized together in Tel Aviv, directly communicating with the Defense Department of the Israeli government. How can they utilize their skill set, their coming together, their community that they had developed to help the war effort? Today, that number is over 14,000 people helping at that headquarters in Tel Aviv. The Haredi segment of the Israeli population, who traditionally people thought were divorced from the national body, are showing up in numbers unseen before in the history of the Jewish state to volunteer in mass, to join the army, to give their yeshiva beds to soldiers who are located on the periphery of the country. The diaspora is coming together in ways that are unprecedented. The Jewish Federations of North America is just one small example, just announced this week that they've raised over $550 million on behalf of the Jewish people. And this is just the beginning. We're still in phase 1. So what's the message? The message is that our size, it's not about the smallness of the Jewish people, which we can clearly focus on, and especially when we feel that we're being attacked from the outside. It's about the nature of the Jewish people. And through our nature, we can prove to be a blessing to the nations of the world. As we show the world that no matter how much certain people hate us, they can never hate us more than we love each other. That is the biggest way we can be a Kiddush Hashem. We can sanctify God's name. We can show that we have more light than there is darkness. And it is that strength, it is that unity that's our greatest weapon. And we know that as hard as this battle will be, we will preserve ourselves and we will come out even stronger because of the unity that's embedded within the Jewish people from Avram Avinu until today. Zat Hashem, we should continue to come together. We should continue to find ways, both personally and collectively, to support the Jewish people, to double down on our connection to Judaism, and to really relish the ability to be part of this people and use that unity as a light in this moment of such darkness. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi. And let me continue now with the reading of this weekly Torah portion. ואדוני פקד את שרה כאשר אמר, ויעש אדוני לשרה כאשר דיבר, ותל את שרה לאברהם בן לזקוניו למועד, אשר דיבר אותו אלוהים, ויקרא אברהם את שם בנו הנולד לו, אשר ילדה לו שרה יצחק.
Thank you, Alex. And now to Eric for the translation.
Adonai took note of Sarah as promised, and Adonai did for Sarah what had been announced. Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken. Abraham gave his new son, who Sarah had borne him, the name of Isaac. And when his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God had commanded him. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Eric. And Avi to read the Chief Rabbi of the UK's prayer.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo. Banu lefanecha betfilah u'betachnunim, tmeim v'shvorei lev, ala makot achzariyot asher hukta hartzenu akdosha v'amcha Yisrael, b'yom asher avcha chagenu le'avel. Anu mitablim al abdan me'ot anashim, nashim v'taf, asher nirtzachu b'zadon, u'mitpalelim al nafshotam. Avinu Malkeinu, shlach rufra shlema le'alfei p'tzuei yamecha. Avinu Malkeinu, rachem al acheinu hashvuim, v'otzim meufla b'tzal mavet legeula. Morsorteim tiftach, u'mitzotzeim hatzilem. V'ashivem meira lechek mishpachotam. Avinu Malkeinu, hagen al mishpachot Yisrael, meimat mavet, v'chazek chaylei tzva hagana l'Yisrael, asher samim nafsham v'chapam v'atzpiam likrat oivenu. Avinu Malkeinu, asher biyadcha lev mlachim v'sarim, taken be'etzat tova milfanecha, et sarei Yisrael lanetzach b'milchatam, kedei shiyu toshvea shananim me'en machrid. Avinu Malkeinu, frosh sukat shlomecha al yoshvei eretzecha, kakatuv, v'natati shalom ba'aretz, v'shachaftem, v'en machrid, v'shafti chaya ra'a min haaretz, v'cherev lo tavor b'artzachem. Barchenu Avinu, bitachon v'salva, v'sim shalom amiti v'kayam al medinat Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel artzecha. Oseh shalom b'imrumav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen.
Amen. And Mazel Tov on your daughter's wedding.
Thank you.
And Jason Isaacson, prayer for the GCC.
Thank you, Huda. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. May he who gives salvation to kings and dominion to princes, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, who delivers his servant David from the evil sword, who makes a way in the sea and a path through the mighty waters, bless and protect, guard and help, exalt, magnify, and uplift His Majesty, the King of Saudi Arabia, His Majesty, the King of Bahrain, His Majesty, the Sultan of Oman, His Highness, the President of the UAE, His Highness, the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness, the Emir of Qatar, and all their crown princes. And may the Supreme King of Kings in his mercy put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into their hearts and the hearts of all their counselors and officials to deal kindly with us, the house of Jacob, and all the people of this land. Be their shelter and stronghold, and let them not falter. In their days and in ours, may these lands be blessed with stability, prosperity, and peace. May this be his will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. And back to Avi for Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem Leshalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni Leshalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem Leshalom, Malachei Ashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.
Shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
May we hear
Bye.
good
Shabbat
news.
shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.